With each breath, you take into your body 10 sextillion atoms, and owing to the wind's ceaseless circulation, over a year's time, you have intimate relations with oxygen molecules exhaled by every person alive, as well as by everyone who ever lived. From Guy Murchie's book, The 7 Mysteries of Life. And a poem from my Theater on Paper exhibition Behind the Curtain, Crossing. You, like this or another figure, reconfigure yourself as you cross each new frontier of self. Leave each old veneer of self, whether in light or shadow, through forest, seas, or deserts, whether you're young and callow or older and mellow. It's these crossroads we come to move through that offer us pauses for deeper reflection, create points of great inflection, expansion, so we might emerge on the other side, another side, reformed, refined, or newly revealed to ourselves and to the world. Welcome everyone, and thank you for leaning in again. Some of you for the first time, some of you again, and more than often, to the 31st Floating Poetry broadcast in this weekly series, coming to you live by firelight and starlight and some meteor showers tonight from the coast of New England, from Watch Hill, Rhode Island, by the sea, the intimate, intimating sea. This is your poet and poetorialist, Colin Goedecke, inviting you this week to seek, surmise, or swim into a greater intimacy with yourself, to live from an intimate beingness with all parts of yourself, including the unlived yet lived parts, ones you can discover, open to, integrate with, and to share from that place a deeper intimacy of being, feeling, with and between others and the natural world. So, let's muse into some thoughts and poems I've brought together for us that relate to meanings of, openings to, reflections around different forms of intimacy. Intimately being. When I began musing on this week's theme, what came to mind were many dimensions, including self-identity, self-awareness, self-discovery, and self-love, inner harmony, emotional intelligence, maturity, humanness, connectedness, and more. One of several ways I've come to it is, instead of using the outer senses as we do to get, quote, in touch, close touch with the world around us, whether with people, food, things, places, ideas, experiences, anything, is using their counterparts within the inner senses, of which there are far more than 5, to create, cultivate, embrace a greater intimacy with myself, with the self, with my essence, wholeness, with as many dimensions of my being I can spelunk into at any given point and can bring to light, if not already at play, can bring alive or more so, and into my daily life, and to all my relationships with the world of men, women, children, and with nature, especially vital for a poet, for an artist, certainly of my kind. In close touch is the right phrase, is the right focal point, since so much, yes, is seen, is felt, understood, communicated, exchanged, whenever we're in a deep closeness with anyone or anything. Yes, it takes time, and yes, it takes clear intention, and like anything worthwhile, a sustained commitment, and absolutely life experience to become extremely intimate with yourself, attuned to your vast and remarkable inner geography, familiar with your interior and your innate telemetry. But to me, that's part of the great mystery and wonder of the whole journey, the ever-unfoldingness of it all, for your poet and for many of us, and for many of you listening, I'm sure, right now. It also takes chosen spans, moments, and stretches of solitude, giving yourself safe, very private, and quiet as a pin inner space where intimacy, real intimacy, can arise, can take meaningful and beautiful shape, as it only does or has, for example, as some of us know firsthand, in our most intimate relationships. This is especially vital when meeting, encountering part or parts of your being you haven't met before, or only faintly gleaned were even there, unlived parts you haven't inhabited yet or more fully. Maybe parts awakened by something or someone, or activated, or as I sometimes say, alchemized by. So, friends, give yourself good room to be together with those parts, to invite and integrate them naturally into your conscious being, into your subtle body, without rushing or pressing or expecting. Just see where it leads, what wants to come. However you find your way to this kind of intimacy, if you wish it, even if it feels in any way overwhelming or intimidating, I believe and know for myself the rewards are immense, physically to spiritually, psychically to emotionally. It has so enriched my own relationships with the outer world, in partnerships, or as we know, my coinage, partnerships, not least, has given me a far larger appreciation and reverence for and sense of organic connection with nature. As a fellow creature, has infused my universe of feelings and inspired my best creating, and so importantly has fine-tuned my intuition, my mission-critical inner guidance system. So all of that is there for each of us. So why not dive or dip in, test your inner waters, or more of them. There's no time like the present. And in a stitch of time, the one we're all in right now, where so much vital intimacy of all kinds, people to people not least, is being denied, deprived, regardless of why. Those are some of my reflections and observations. Let's hear next some others of possible note that I've brought together for us. Then some poems that continue this weave of intimately being. That we begin with something that the former UN Secretary General of a long time ago and Nobel laureate Dag Hammarskjöld wrote, "At every moment you choose yourself, but do you choose yourself? Body and soul contain 1,000 possibilities out of which you can build many I's," as in the letter I. "But in only one of them is there a congruence of the elector and the elected. Only one, which you will never find until you have excluded all those superficial and fleeting possibilities of being and doing with which you toy out of curiosity or wonder or greed, and which hinder you from casting anchor in the experience of the mystery of life and the consciousness of the talent entrusted to you, which is your I." I came across this next note. I cannot find the exact reference at the moment, but it was just I pulled it out as what is self-intimacy, in case we wanted to define it more particularly. And this says the ability to look at our behaviors objectively is a pretty big deal for those of us living in today's world, where the vast majority of people are running 100 miles per hour on autopilot. We act unconsciously. We let our minds wander. We have no real idea what's wrong. By developing self-awareness, we can start to notice and heal our emotions moment to moment until, eventually, we look up one day and realize that feeling well is the default, not the outlier. I like that. I thought that was good for us to take in today. And Dr. Suzanne Degas-White wrote this: "Taking time to establish self-intimacy is important. When we do not give ourselves time alone for reflection and self-intimacy, we are letting ourselves off too easy in life and not holding ourselves up to the inner scrutiny that allows us the space to acknowledge and address the areas in which we may need to grow. We also need time alone with ourselves to reconnect with who we are when we, quote, show up in relationships with others. By intentionally choosing to spend time alone, you are also acknowledging the worth of your personhood and the value inherent in being who you are. The need to surround yourself with the company of others often reflects needs to measure self-worth by popularity or to provide, quote, evidence of your social desirability. This from the site My Question Life on self-discovery as a process, not an answer. Purpose is derived from the journey, not some treasure at the end. Self-discovery involves asking questions and finding answers, but it is not a journey with a final destination, nor does it contain a specific answer to our lives. It's the process of discovering ourselves over and over again as we find out what gives us purpose in our daily lives. Writer Leslie Santos wrote about differentiating between your, quote, social self and your, quote, essential self. This is the part of self that conforms the social self to social structures and expectations. The conditioning happens over time, and you're told what to think, how to behave, how to fit in, how to be accepted, how to gain approval or love. You were socialized to meet the demands of your environment, and while some of the social conditioning was useful, chances are that today you may operate largely unaware which part of self is making the decision, the social or the essential. The very illuminating Belgian psychotherapist Esther Perel, out in the world there, it's worth investigating some of her thoughts on intimacy and relationships. She had this to say: love rests on two pillars, surrender and autonomy. Our need for togetherness exists alongside our need for separateness. One does not exist without the other. With too much distance, there can be no connection, but too much merging eradicates the separateness of two distinct individuals. Then there's nothing more to transcend, no bridge to walk on, no one to visit on the other side, no other internal world to enter. When people become fused, when two become one, connection can no longer happen. There is no one to connect with. Thus, separateness is a precondition for connection. This is the essential paradox of intimacy and sex. If you don't know Alain de Botton of the School of Life over in the UK, he's what's called an existential contemplative. Sounds pretty substantial. I've read him for quite some time, and he had a good commentary on emotional intelligence and maturity, which for me, and I think others would say has to factor into achieving a state of great or greater self-intimacy. So on that road to that learning, he said the knack of our species lies in our capacity to transmit our accumulated knowledge down the generations. The slowest among us can in a few hours pick up ideas that it took a few rare geniuses a lifetime to acquire. Yet what's distinctive is just how selective we are about the topics we deem it possible to educate ourselves in. Our energies are overwhelmingly directed toward material, scientific, and technical subjects and away from psychological and emotional ones. Much anxiety surrounds the question of how good the next generation will be at math, very little around their abilities at marriage or kindness. We devote inordinate hours to learning about tectonic plates and cloud formations, and relatively few fathoming shame and rage. The emotionally intelligent person knows that love is a skill, not a feeling, and will require trust, vulnerability, generosity, humor, sexual understanding, and selective resignation. The emotionally intelligent person awards themselves the time to determine what gives their working life meaning and has the confidence and tenacity to try to find an accommodation between their inner priorities and the demands of the world. The emotionally intelligent person knows how to hope and be grateful while remaining steadfast before the essentially tragic structure of existence. The emotionally intelligent person knows that they will only ever be mentally healthy in a few areas and at certain moments, but is committed to fathoming their inadequacies and warning others of them in good time, with apology and charm. There are few catastrophes in our own lives or in those of nations that do not ultimately have their origins in emotional ignorance. Thank you, Alain de Botton. Our poet and philosopher David Whyte speaks to maturity. He writes that that life-wise man writes, maturity is the ability to live fully and equally in multiple contexts, most especially the ability, despite our grief and losses, to courageously inhabit the past, the present, and the future all at once. The wisdom that comes from maturity is recognized through a disciplined refusal to choose between or isolate three powerful dynamics that form human identity: what has happened, what is happening now, and what is about to occur. Immaturity is shown by making false choices, living only in the past, or only in the present, or only in the future, or even living only two out of the three. It's not a static arrived platform where life is viewed from a calm, untouched oasis of wisdom, but a living, elemental frontier between what has happened, what is happening now, and the consequences of that past and present, first imagined and then lived into the waiting future. Maturity calls us to risk ourselves as much as immaturity, but for a bigger picture, a larger horizon, for a powerfully generous outward incarnation of our inward qualities, and not for gains that make us smaller, even in the winning. I wanted to share something by Adam Phillips on I'll just redo this a little bit first because I don't want us to run too long over. I have so much wonderful material tonight, but I think that'll take us a little too far over my desired mark for us. So I'll just read you the first thought from him, but do look into him. He said, "The unexamined life is surely worth living, but is the unlived life worth examining? It seems a strange question until one realizes how much of our so-called mental life is about the lives we are not living, the lives we are missing out on, the lives we could be leading, but for some reason are not." He has a lot more to say, but part of his point is that the frustration with that leads us to what we do want and how to move toward it. So it's a nice sort of segue to all that. And as we come to the last few thoughts before we dip into some poems, I thought it was interesting looking at, according to spiritual science, a living human being is made up of the following bodies: the gross body, the vital body, the mental body, the intellect or causal body, the subtle ego, the soul in every human being. And all the other aspects of our being other than the soul are part of the great illusion in this way of thought. It is called nescience, Nescience, or avidye. I don't know how to pronounce that, actually. I'm pretty good in generally pronouncing, but I didn't practice that one, which one literally translated means absence of knowledge. The word nescience stems from the fact that we identify ourselves with our gross body, mind, and intellect, and not with our true nature, which is the soul within us. Well, I definitely subscribe to that. So the last two thoughts, one is Khalil Gibran, and a lot of us would know of him and his 1923 classic, The Prophet, and on who said, instead of on the matter of talking, instead of quietly stilling yourself, you talk when you cease to be at peace with your thoughts, and when you can no longer dwell in the solitude of your heart, you live in your lips, and sound is a diversion and a pastime. And in much of your talking, thinking is half murdered. For thought is a bird of space, that in a cage of words may indeed unfold its wings, but cannot fly. So last thought is by the great German poet, novelist, painter Hermann Hesse on solitude. Most men, the herd, have never tasted solitude. They leave father and mother, but only to crawl to a wife and quietly succumb to a new warmth and new ties. They are never alone. They never commune with themselves. And when a solitary man crosses their path, they fear him and hate him like the plague. They fling stones at him and find no peace until they are far away from him. The air around him smells of stars, of cold stellar spaces. He lacks the soft, warm fragrance of the home and hatchery. A man must be indifferent to the possibility of falling if he wants to taste the solitude and to face up to his own destiny. It's easier and sweeter to walk with a people, with a multitude, even through misery. It's easier and more comforting to devote oneself to the, quote, tasks of the day, the tasks meted out by the collectivity. Well. Let's dip into some poems. Inviting and cultivating an intimacy with nature, the natural world. So fulfilling on many levels. Certainly, I know for me, many, maybe for you, or could be. This was written in the Yucatan on the Mayan coast, Mexico, years back. Love in the afternoon. Eyes kiss the silky-mouthed sand. Sand kisses the salty-mouthed sea. Sea kisses the wide-mouthed sky. Sky kisses the soft-mouthed clouds. Clouds kiss the warm-mouthed sun. Sun kisses your open-mouthed eyes. There's so much sensuousness, sensualness, intimate ways we can meet a day, on whatever their landscape is, and certainly if there's some natural part of it, that's even better. So this was a late August, a few years back, countryside. Can you taste the green on the tongue of your nose? The greens of a northeast summer, sultry summer day, the sense of sweet grasses, languid trees, and curling vines, fanning fronds and sunning fields, all lushing, infusing the air as you slowly move, taste, breathe through their sensuously redolent aromas. D.H. Lawrence spoke about solitude and rooting ourselves. This is not a poem, but prose piece, but rooting ourselves through nature. And this was at the end of an intimate relationship, but he found solace and solitude and rootedness by sitting among the cypresses. He sat for long hours among the cypress trees of Tuscany, and never had any trees seemed so like ghosts, like soft, strange, pregnant presences. He lay and watched tall cypresses breathing and communicating, faintly moving and as it were walking in the small wind. And his soul seemed to leave him and to go far away, far back, perhaps, to where life was all different, and time passed otherwise than time passes now. As in clairvoyance, he perceived it, that our life is only a fragment of the shell of life, that there has been and will be life, human life such as we do not begin to conceive. Much that is life has passed away from men, leaving us all mere bits, in the dark, mindful silence and inflection of the cypress trees. Lost races, lost language, lost human ways of feeling and of knowing. Men have known as we can no more know, have felt as we can no more feel. Great life realities gone into the darkness, but the cypresses commemorate. Thank you, D.H. Lawrence. Wonderful writer. There's finding great solace and deliciousness in just being, freely being at ease in yourself and setting, however simple or elaborate it might be. And I had one of those moments. I've had many, but I gave myself one just to be in that place a few summers back. And this poem is, sit back. Run yourself a bath. While it's running, pour yourself a drink. A smooth vino rosso or other aperitivo. Put on Coleman Hawkins or Russ Columbo. Have a slow dance with your partner or a slow kiss. Slip out of your clothes into your bath. Sit back. Close your eyes. Let your breath flow, your body float. Your cares and concerns dissolve in the warm and languid waters. Sit back. Always a good thing to do. Often as possible. Sit back. There's the purely visceral feeling you can discover, can experience with your own body in its openness, its, what I would say, receivingness. And back in an Indian summer in Maine, October, a few years ago, on Rockland Harbor, I was in a beautiful little spot overlooking the harbor, and this poem came to me one night. I bless my body. While the town sleeps and dreams behind me, and the pined islands lay silently, invisibly off the salt-tongued shore. I rise, bare-bodied, from my warm bed and out into the cool falling rain, to bless this being of flesh and bone, heart and soul, to feel the wildness of nature. Let the blissful, sensual world touch my willing skin. Bathe my upraised face. Fill my upturned palms. Let the elements of this pure living place anoint me on this pouring autumn night. So, I encourage us all to bless our bodies in whatever ways we can, whatever our bodies are, whatever our earth suits are that we're in, traveling through the world in. There's the sometimes incredible intimacy of a memory, like this poem by Joseph Stroud, reading Cavafy alone in bed. Of course, he's referring to the poet of Alexandria in the past, Constantine Cavafy. His famous poem is Ithaca, if you don't know that, worth a read. Reading Cavafy alone in bed. I too remember the past, my room lit by candles, and the night she entered and touched my face with her face, with mouth and tongue and lips, in the orchard night, in the odor of fruit, her breasts. Remember, body, that room, remember our cries, the flickering candles. There's being so close to a beloved partner in all their actual and imaginal forms, close in heart and spirit and body and desire. And I was with my wife at the time, and I entered this intimate feeling and being place, and this poem poured out of me or into me quietly as I was in it, as often happens with me. And it was on Central Park West in New York some Januaries ago, more than a few. My Modigliani. Your roseate face gazes straight out from the frame you're painted in, making, like other Amadeos, open eye contact with the viewer. But for this moment you are my Modigliani and no others, with your elongated lines of black silk and velvet, your languorously outstretched body turned at a diagonal yet graceful angle on the barest suggestion of lamplit couch, where you appear one-dimensional but are clearly 3 or 4, sensual, quietly erotic, individual, with your lips kissed onto the canvas and your eyes inward and outward, self-satisfied, expressive, and the skin of your neck and hands showing and all glowing luminously out into the moving room, where a pink young lady is having a party with cake and candles, while I enjoy the sight of my beautiful dark and breathing Modigliani. There's the sheer joy of physical intimacy, intimately kissing here with abandon that poet Dorian Laux extols in her poem, one of my favorites of hers, Kissing Again, it's called. Kissing again after a long drought of not kissing. Too many kids, bills, windows needing repair. Sex, yes, though squeezed in between the minor depths of anger, despair, standing up amid the laundry or fumbling onto the strip of rug between the coffee table and the couch. Quick, furtive, like birds, a dance on the wing, but no time for kissing. The luxuriant tonguing of another spongy tongue, the deft flicking and feral sucking, that prolonged lapping that makes a smooth stone of the brain. To be lost in it, your body tumbled in sea waves, no up or down, just salt in the liquid swells set in motion by the moon, by a tremor in Istanbul, the waft of a moth wing before it plows into a halo of light. Praise the deep, lustrous kiss that lasts minutes, blossoms into what feels like days, fields of tulips glossy with dew, low purple clouds piling in beneath the distant arch of a bridge. One after another they storm your lips, each kiss a caress, autonomous and alive, spilling into each other, streams into creeks, into rivers that grunt and break upon the gorge. Let the tongue in its wisdom release its stores, let the mouth tired of talking, relax into its shapes of give and receive, its plush swelling, its slick round reveling, its primal reminiscence that knows only the one robust world. Well, that's a topper. That one on Kiss, and good heavens, who wouldn't like that? There's the sacred intimacy we can enter, experience in the deep stillness of a night or a dream field or a meditation or another kind of moment. This one happened to me up in Maine, Nobleboro, Maine, October 2018. The divine hour. The hour nigh on 3. You're invited to open your eyes from a heavenly rest, to find yourself, feel yourself farthest from your earthly matters and closest to the essence, sacredness that's effused inside you, that infuses and inspirits you, and everything seen and unseen, everyone you know, ever knew, will ever meet, every place of nature life takes you, every realm your dreams and deepest wonderings may take you from here. This divine hour, this quietly divine and divining hour. As we round toward the end of today, a few last things for us. This one about meeting a presence within that's profound, that you feel is profound. You may not even have words for it, but it wants us to commune with it. I feel it's part of ourselves, or could be. So I'll share it with you, and you'll ponder it yourself, and anything that you may have experienced like that or would like to. What is this presence? Close around me in the night darkness, in the deep stillness, enfolding me like a lover with such tenderness, like a mother with such benevolence. Is it the presence of the land and water I lie above? Is it a soft, silent angel revealing its protecting wings? Or my own spirit, my anima, holding me so transcendently and showing me I'm really a body inside a breathing soul? What is this presence? Here's a piece from a man who was intimately natural, lyrical, and wise, Walt Whitman. This is part of his Song of the Open Road, much longer piece, but on the test of our wisdom, I thought this was perfectly fitting to wind out with. Now I see the secret of the making of the best persons. It is to grow in the open air and to eat and sleep with the earth. Here a great personal deed has room. Such a deed seizes upon the hearts of the whole race of men. Its effusion of strength and will overwhelms law and mocks all authority and all argument against it. Here is the test of wisdom. Wisdom is not finely tested in schools. Wisdom cannot be passed from one having it to another not having it. Wisdom is of the soul, is not susceptible of proof, is its own proof, applies to all stages and objects and qualities, and is content, is the certainty of the reality and immortality of things and the excellence of things. Something there is in the float of the sight of things that provokes it out of the soul. Now I re-examine philosophies and religions. They may prove well in lecture rooms, yet not prove at all under the spacious clouds and along the landscape and flowing currents. Here is realization. Here is a man tallied. He realizes here what he has in him. The past, the future, majesty, love. If they are vacant of you, you are vacant of them. I thought one of John O'Donohue's beautiful blessings would be welcome as we talk of, think of self-discovery, self-intimacy, self-possibility. And this is a blessing for a new beginning, because that embarking on that greater intimacy, self-discovery, self-evolution, realization, enlightenment, all of that represents new beginnings to me. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming. waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight, when your courage kindled, and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning. That is at one with your life's desires. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. Thank you, John O'Donohue. That's from To Bless the Space Between Us, Book of Blessings. All right, so coming to the last two things for us now. Next to last for our time together, an affirmation of you in your you-ness out there, in state of being and becoming. This is, here you are, in the world, in this curiously wild and wildly curious place. Not only the wider one spanning blue oceans and white deserts, distant countries and quilted cultures, but all the other ones, animate and intimate ones, of life and work, friends and family, of the rare body of energy and beauty you live in, move and grow in, of the realms of dreams and feelings, soul and mystery, that shape your days, your nights, the moments of your being, the heart of your becoming. And we end with a call to explore, to engage, to experience all of yourself, all your places of most intimate being and feeling. Follow the route, for it leads to and from your source, your essential self, your essential life force, the way your body knows, the place your soul knows and grows from, pours through, the way for another following body and soul to feel everything deep inside you. Thank you for listening in and feeling in, and during these pandemic times, those helping to support these programs and poetic arts with donations, sharings, and great enthusiasms. I welcome every contribution. All are easily makeable by PayPal and Venmo and directly through my site, as are invitations to have me as an artist in residence to create new work for a month or a season or sponsor a budding project. I also actively invite your questions. Send me any you have around this or any prior broadcast. I'll answer many in a live program I'm planning before year end. Email me at colin@thepoetorialist.com. Remember, all the shows are online for replays and to share around freely. I invite you to lean in next week or soon again. Until then, dear listeners, good days ahead, days of experiencing more intimacy of being, and good spirits.